Hello everybody, this is Lag Spike, and today I'm joined again here with Zoran.
Hi everyone.
And today we're going to be going over the classes of Fire Emblem Fates. Basically, we're going to be going over all the classes that are not DLC, so this also includes Dreadfighter and Darkflyer, and we're going to be going over, more specifically, the promotions. Fates has branching promotions, as you know, so there's often a bit of discrepancy as to what you should pick. I saw this comment in a video about a month ago, and I thought it was a really good idea, and I've been really looking forward to doing this. Let's get started. We're going to be starting off on a bit of a low note here. We have Corrin's classes, Nohr Prince, Nohr Princess, Hoshido Noble, and Nohr Noble. The basic overview is that you can pick either of these classes to promote into in Revelation, and you can only pick Nohr Noble in Conquest, and you can only pick Hoshido Noble in Birthright. Nohr Noble has more offensive stats and it gets tome access, whereas Hoshido Noble is slightly more defensive and gets staff access and a little bit more strength.
Yeah. So Hoshido Noble is an awful class. Gaining staves on promotion is not useful at all, really. You're going to be there with Bloom Festals healing like 10 HP. And like it just doesn't do anything for you. Like you're just going to be a souped up Nohr Prince or Nohr Princess. With Nohr Noble, you get tomes instead. And that's a legitimate weapon. Like having 1-2 range weapon access is a very big deal, which makes it a lot better as a class. Even still, you probably want to reclass out of this on both routes, but for Hoshido Noble on the Birthright side, it's not worth going to at all.
Yeah, basically, Nohr Noble is always going to be better for you. Because, I mean, honestly, normally I would say that you would want to get out of your base class as much as possible, but if you don't, then Nohr Noble is definitely a better pick. We're going to be moving on to Songstress, which is Azura's class, and, you know, she does her thing in it, but she doesn't really do much else. I don't really know what else to say other than that it's a good class because dancers are good in Fire Emblem.
Yeah. The only real comment about this and in this the scope of this discussion is don't go to any other class. Like it's not worth getting anything you can get from Azura's own Heart Seal classes or partner or friendship classes in the main game. You can screw around with that stuff for PvP if you want, but she's always best as Songstress. Just stay with it. Unless
obviously if you're going for the flex. If you're trying to flex, then definitely do whatever you want. But if you're trying to play the game and not have an aneurysm, Songstress is definitely the class to stay in with Azura. Alright, we're going to start off with our Hoshin classes here. And starting off, we have a pretty big roster here on Samurai. A bunch of people get this class. You can either pick Swordmaster when you're promoting, which allows you to...
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Pause. Okay, hold up. Give me a second. Let me pause this. I'm going to quickly just change this to S rank swords.
Someone's going to be doing some cutting.
Yeah, that's me. Don't worry. I'll handle the editing. Moving on to the Hoshin classes, we have Samurai, which has a pretty big roster. A lot of people get this class. Your options are either going into Swordmaster, which gives you an innate class bonus of 10 crit and 10 avoid. Gets you a possible S rank swords and a bunch more speed. And skills that are there, I guess. And Master of Arms gives you access to a bunch of weapon types, which you'll never use because Fate's weapon rank system is annoying to deal with. But it has a potential of giving you access to life and death at the end.
Yeah, the skills in both of these classes are pretty solid, actually. Master of Arms tends to be more impactful if you're like really going wild with skill builds, but both sides have useful stuff. And I think this is a case where it comes down to what kinds of stats the unit is looking for. So, for example, Hana might benefit from having the much bigger defense bonus in Master of Arms because the thing that she needs more than anything else is concrete bulk, and Master of Arms will help more than Swordmaster will.
On the other hand, somebody like Hinata and his really mediocre base speed is really going to be benefiting from the extra speed buff of Swordmaster. There are some special cases where, you know, Odin has really bad speed, but the main reason that Odin or Ophelia would be going into this class is to get access to life and death for funny sorcerer strategies. So if you're using them in this class, you probably want to go into Master of Arms.
Yeah, life and death is the skill that applies to all weapon types. So if you're trying to do some crazy damage stack, Swordfair is only really going to help you if you're one of those people who has access to a good 1-2 range sword, meaning Ryoma, Siegfried, Ryoma, Xander, or or potentially 11 sword Corrin or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Moving on, we have Villager. Villager is one of the more exclusive classes in the game. Only Mozu and her child can get it, and her child only has access to it from Heartseal, and that's fine because this class is really, really bad. Master of Arms gives you generally just better offensive promotion gains, but Merchant comes in and has just a really good secondary weapon type in bows. Access to non-melee combat is basically everything in like Fates, because access to just tactical flexibility is so valuable that it's really, really tough to turn down. Unfortunately, the bonuses that you get on promotion are just not all that, but thankfully, because Mozu has pretty decent growth, she can try to make up for it.
Yeah, in Mozu's case in particular, she really appreciates the extra defense and resistance. They help quite a bit. But yeah, this is a case where if you are a villager and you're sticking with it and making the promotion out of here, then probably bow access is going to be much better for you than the extra melee weapons in Master of Arms. So I would say go to Merchant first, and if you want to mess around with the Master of Arms skills later, you can do that. You know, change to Master of Arms at level 13 or something like that.
Next up is the Apothecary. I was really shocked to find out that 8 people get this class in their original class set. But your promotion options from Apothecary are Merchant and Mechanist. My take here is that if you're trying to make a real combat unit, you go Mechanist. If you're trying to do some goofy shit, you go Merchant. And that's basically all I have to say.
Yeah, Dagger or Shuriken access is a huge bonus that, like, if you're given the choice between that and Lances, you know, Daggers all the time. There's not that many people who end up going this route just because there aren't many people who are natively Apothecaries. And in Birthright, going to Apothecary is not that good. Like being bow locked as an unpromoted unit is not good in Birthright.
God, Yumis are so bad.
Yeah, the accuracy difference between bows and Yumis really hurts the Yumi side of the equation there. But yeah, if you want to go with if you want to become a real combat unit, you want Mechanist for the dagger access. Replicate is also very funny. Golem Bane has pretty limited applications. I think maybe the only exception is you might want to go straight to Merchant if you're Midori and you're looking for Profiteer stuff. Or
Anna.
Anna doesn't really. Yeah, you can combine Profiteer with your personal skill. But otherwise, Mechanist is a better class.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to Ninja, here we have a pretty simple promotion gain. You either go into Mechanist, get a little bit more movement and a little bit more strength, or you go into Master Ninja and you just do what Ninja does, but better. Normally you would think that on units with a lot of speed, normally giving them extra strength is the play, but the way I see it, honestly, for somebody like Kaze, especially in Conquest, Master Ninja, I find that it tends to be better because Conquest really, you are at a bit of a dearth of options when it comes to fighting mages really, really well. Leo can do it, Felicia can do it earlier on, but Kaze is the one that really, really does it. Kaze in Master Ninja will never want for any sort of speed support ever, and his strength will be a bit lackluster, but he will probably be most commonly going up against enemies that are a bit frailer, so mages and flyers like Pegasi and whatnot, or maybe like Shrine Maidens and whatnot. So he probably won't be noticing that hurting him as much, and later on he'll get Shuriken Fair, which will help him out as well. I just think it's a pretty solid pick.
Yeah, so the temptation here, I think, would be to take some of the frailer ninjas like Kaze or Kagero and say, well, okay, I can go Mechanist and get +2 defense and extra HP and just be bulkier, but also have my good speed and strength stats. And I don't think that works as well as you might hope, because they're still pretty far behind in concrete defenses, and you are giving up a good chunk of the utility from the base ninja class by losing the big speed bonus and the movement bonus on pair up. And Master Ninja is better at the things that ninjas are already good at, and generally speaking, you're better off developing or building specialists who fight a particular enemy type really well than you are trying to make one unit who has fairly lopsided stats into a generalist who fights everything.
There are some exceptions to that rule, and the names of the exceptions are Xander, Ryoma, Camilla, Leo, so on and so forth. But for most units, yeah, its Fates is a bit of an oddball when it comes to the series.
The Norians are just built different. What can we say?
Yeah, they definitely are. Okay, moving on to a bit of an odd class here, we have the Monk and Shrine Maiden. So Fates actually got rid of sexism when it comes to the Pegasus Knights, but then the Monks were like, no, we still want it, and they split this class into half for no particular reason. The only difference here is that on promotion you get different stats and a different weapon type. Great Master and Priestess are like surprisingly really powerful classes when it comes to just base stats. If you look at those promotion gains, you're not messing around here. Unfortunately, you start off at E rank, and in Birthright especially, it's not that good. Except for on Azama, I would really recommend going Great Master. You'll get just a great tank that can just take on units until like chapter 14 when you decide to give up on playing the game. Onmyoji is basically the class that you're only going to pick if you want to do Rally Luck plus Rally Magic on a unit that's almost exclusively devoted to support, though.
Yeah, every magical class in this game has a physical and a magical promotion option. And in this particular case, like the physical one, the Great Master or Priestess side, it's a really cool concept. It just doesn't really work that well for the characters who have innate access to it. Azama definitely does want to go Great Master. But in Birthright, he misses out on any good 1-2 range javelins or anything like that, which sucks. And then for Sakura's not very good in Birthright in general, but probably she's better off in Onmyoji just to have like better magical combat than to be firing the Brass Yumi. It's and for Mitama, it really depends who her mom is, because she has respectable growths on both sides by default.
She's a solid unit, and also it can sometimes depend on what her inheritance is.
Yeah, but once again, like, Yumi combat just isn't that good in Birthright. Potentially more useful in Revelation, but you'd probably use bows.
Yeah, you'd probably use the Shining Bow on her.
So, like, in Revelation, there's more merit to the Great Master or Priestess lines. But I think as a general rule, probably you're going to get more utility out of Onmyoji, which in this case, both sides have staff access, but Onmyoji gives you tomes or scrolls for 1-2 range combat.
And also has a pretty good pair up.
Yes, I was going to say really nice offensive pair up bonuses and an extra rally to use, which is also nice.
Then we get to Diviner, the class with the worst base stats. Well, not actually, but like it's got really bad base stats. Diviner, honestly, if you're in Diviner, you're probably going to be doing basically the same thing no matter what. It just depends on whether you really need the bulk or not. If you're trying to go full nuke status, like if you're trying to go full nuke Rajat, something like that, you probably would go Onmyoji, but on a more moderate unit like Hayato, I would say Basara is probably better for the extra bulk that you get, because plus 5 HP, plus 6 defense is a big upgrade to your bulk.
Yeah, I would say, like, if you're going to be a combat unit, Basara is just better. The only real merit of Onmyoji is having A rank in tomes or scrolls, but the only real benefit to that in Birthright is that you get access to the Snake Spirit and the Dragon Spirit, which the Dragon Spirit can be funny in Camilla's chapter and like Hans's chapter, but it's not that good. And the Snake Spirit is the only brave weapon, but again, just like not very good. And you have to deal with Onmyoji's really bad stats. So Onmyoji is better for support. It does let you use Bloom Festals, which is whatever, but also has the again the pair bonus and the rally. But if you're going combat, it's almost always Basara.
Here we have Spearfighter. Spearfighter, I think that a Spearfighter unit is going to be just about as good as you expect them to be, no matter what you do. I think it really just depends on like what kind of supplemental stuff you want. If you want a little bit more magical bulk, perhaps, then you're probably better off going Basara. If you want a slightly better pair up and better offensive stats on the physical side, probably go Spearmaster. And honestly, I don't think you would ever heart seal into this class.
Yeah, to me, this is kind of like the ninja thing, where yes, you can pick the generalist promotion that lets you do a little bit of everything, but for the particular people who start in Spearfighter, they're all basically physically oriented. Just go with Spearmaster and let them do one thing well. Basara will let you like I guess use the rat spirit. It's just not very good.
It gives you a little bit more res too, which is nice. But yeah, you do suffer quite a bit. A little tip I like to tell the viewers: if you want to make Takumi a little bit better, what you can do is you can early promote Oboro or really anybody, but Oboro I like to do it because it's a fast support, and she'll give Takumi his personal, and also she'll just be a good combat unit for a while.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I do want to mention that, like, if you are doing something with the Bolt Naginata, then Basara is better for that. Probably not that appropriate for the character to start in Spear Fighter, though. So, I mean, you can go get Lancefarer out of Spearmaster and then become a magical Basara, but you probably want to do magical Falcon Knight in that case.
All right, moving on to Archer. This is probably one of my favorite classes in the game. Archer, what you do, this is actually one of the few exceptions to the, being a generalist as opposed to being good at a specific thing, where Sniper is really good at that specific thing. You just fucking shit on enemies, but that's really about it, and your utility is somewhat limited. However, I still really like Sniper. It gives you that extra 10 hit bonus, and also you get certain blow, but I think that for a lot of units, they will find that they will have a better time if they go into Kinshi Knight at some point.
Yeah, I think I'm any route, really. In Birthright, I think there's a lot more merit to going to Sniper first, just because Yumi hit is really bad, and certain blow and the 10 hit bonus both help a lot with that. And then maybe go Kinshi Knight later if you're not just going to solo the game with Xander or with Ryoma. But otherwise, I think Kinshi Knight is the better class for most purposes. Having, like, even though the stats are worse, having flight is just such a big deal, particularly in Conquest and Revelation, that it's going to be way more useful to you in almost every
it's a
case.
bit hard to let go of the flight class when you know it's going to be really good for you.
So, like, in Conquest, you might consider going, if you're an archer, you might consider going to Sniper first and getting certain blow. But that really depends on what your seal economy is like how many friendship or heart seals or whatever you're using you have available to you before Chapter 20, because you're going to get to level 5 promoted before the Chapter 19, 20, 21 sequence probably, and that's where you really want flight. So if you're going Sniper first, you're kind of committing to that.
It also depends on how many flyers you have, because if you have Percy, Camilla, Baruka, Xander, yada yada, then you're probably gonna be fine if you're just trying to skip those maps. But
sure.
It obviously never hurts to have more flyers.
Yeah, but if you intend to use your archer unit in that stretch, if you're going Sniper first, you're basically committing to spending an extra seal to get out and go to Kinshi.
We were talking about Sky Knight a little bit earlier. Now we move on to Sky Knight. Sky Knight is actually I like this class. It hits like a wet noodle sometimes, but it's a flying class. You get good stuff out of it. I'd say that Kinshi Knight is really just that good, having access to that 2 range, especially in Birthright when you don't really have good 1 to 2 range lances. You get 1 javelin. That's it. However, for units that are just really down bad, like Tsubaki, I would say you go Falcon Knight, because he really just needs that strength. Like, he needs everything he can get.
I think... Yeah, I could see that. Tsubaki's in a pretty rough spot. But again, I think Kinshi is the better combat class in general, and the Falcon Knight ends up being the support class, even though the stats aren't really set up that way, with Falcon being stronger and faster and having better defenses. But it just... being Lance only and Steve's just isn't that good.
It's a little bit better in Revelation because you do get Bolt Naginata access, and I will say some of these Bolt Naginata Falcon Knight builds do be hitting different. Like with Sakura, you can pack a pretty big wallop if you play your cards right.
Yeah, you can do that in Birthright too. And if you're going that route, then yeah, Falcon Knight makes sense. If you're specifically using the Bolt Naginata, it's fine. Otherwise, you're gonna want bow access.
All right, now we have Oni Savage. This class is a little bit of a pain to get into. There's only 1 unit that gets it without Heart Seal access. And here you go Oni Chieftain. Oni Chieftain is actually a very excellent class. The there's one issue with Oni Chieftain, and that's that it has a 0 skill base, people. It has a 0 skill base. You can actually take Conquest Elise, put her into Oni Chieftain, and she will have a grand total of 0 skill. It's great. I honestly recommend everybody do it at least once, just to feel what it's like to play FE6, but in Conquest. But honestly, none of these units actually suffer too much from skill issues, except for Hinata sometimes. And Blacksmith is really, it doesn't have much to make up for the fact that it's really just not that good otherwise. Like, I would just say Oni Chieftain almost always.
Yeah. Neither of these classes have very good skills. Salvage Blow is funny and can get you a lot of money if you need it for whatever reason, but it's not that important. So this basically comes down to stats, parrot bonuses, and weapon access. And despite the skill issue, Oni Chieftain basically blows Blacksmith out of the water and everything else. A funny thing about this is that the magic matters a lot. Like, even though Rinka is a little bit more physically oriented, the way to make her a good unit is to go Oni Chieftain and go towards magic. Same with Hayato. Hinata probably not, but he should stick with his default class anyway. But yeah, we're going to see another choice later on where you've got your axe class and you choose between the physical and the magical promotion. That one's going to be a lot tighter, but this one, it's Oni Chieftain all the way.
Yeah, that one's going to be a lot better as well.
Yeah.
I believe this is our final birthright class. We have Kitsune. This is not really much of an option because there literally is no fucking choice. You get railroaded into Ninetales if you stick with Kitsune, and this is kind of an unfortunate situation for Caden and Selkie because they really would. Their stats are not horrible, but they really just are lacking better options. Because their reclass is Diviner, and that's just not a good look for them. The 1 strength and 1 magic on promotion is a bit of a slap in the face, but if you go into this class, I implore you, get them a good pair up, and they might be able to work. Other than that, try to get out of it at all costs.
Yeah, it just has some fundamental problems, like being theoretically an anti-mage class, but being melee locked, so you can't fight them on enemy phase. And being a dodge tank in a game that doesn't really support that, and it doesn't have the kinds of skills that, say, Ryoma does to kind of cheat the void dodge tanking system a little. Mm-hmm. There's very little that's good about Ninetales, and unfortunately, Caden and Selkie don't have a good other heart seal option by default either.
Yeah. Get him a good wife.
Yeah, that's the best hope.
All right, now it's what you've all been waiting for, the Conquest classes, where I have a lot more to talk about. Okay, Cavalier. Historically, Cav into Paladin and Great Knight has been a blowout in favor of Paladin. Here, I feel like it's a much more reasonable choice between the two. Paladin offers a lot more like focus stats on, generally speaking, offense, and you get out of the promoted classes, out of the promoted skills for this set of classes, there's literally only one good skill, and it's Defender on Paladin. When it comes to Great Knight, you get a lot more bulk at the expense of obviously speed, resistance, a little bit of movement, and some skill. I usually try to say for units like Sophie, I would go into Paladin. Sophie, Sigbert, and maybe Silas, I would go into Paladin. For units like Perry, Jacob, maybe Dwyer, I would go into Great Knight. And for Xander, I would say you probably have a better class to be in than Paladin Great Knight.
Yeah, the thing is, pretty much every Cavalier has something better to do than stay in Paladin or Great Knight.
Except for Perry.
Except Perry, and Perry's kind of sad about that. But yeah, it's an interesting choice here if you are going into these for whatever reason. Paladin definitely has the only good skill to take away. So like if you're Silas and you're planning to promote in the middle of the game somewhere and then eventually go out to something like Wyvern Lord or Master Ninja or whatever, Defender is a nice bonus to grab along the way. And you won't, in those few levels you take to get to Defender, you won't miss like the axe access from Great Knight that much. And having higher movement is a nice benefit. Great Knight is probably superior if you're going to it early in the game. Like if you're doing an early promotion for Silas or Perry, or if you're picking a class for Jacob, Great Knight's almost always going to be better at hitting your kill thresholds than Paladin will, at least in Conquest.
Because Jacob doesn't go for doubling thresholds. He tries to go for Oko thresholds, which just speaks to how broken those two units are.
Yeah. at least in the early game. So neither of these classes is very good in the long term, which is pretty surprising. It's just the way, I mean, in Birthright, there's not much access to it. In Conquest and Revelation, it's just the way the maps are designed and the kinds of enemies you face. They're just not that good.
Paladin and Great Knight do get a little bit better once you approach like the chapter 23, chapter 24. They're still not great, but they do tend to get better. It's just that middle split just screws them over a lot. And also, later on, enemies start packing a lot more effective weaponry.
Yeah. But definitely early on, getting axes is really nice. It helps you hit those kill thresholds. Also, hand axes have a lot of utility in places like the Ninja Cave. Like taking away enemy ninja weapon ranks is a very useful function sometimes. So this is kind of a close run thing. I think Great Knight's generally better at actual combat. Paladin is better for the skills, and it really just depends what you want to do. And either way, probably don't want to stick with these classes for the whole game.
It feels wrong to say coming from a larger Fire Emblem background, but it's true. Now we go to Knight, splitting into Great Knight in general. I think Zoran and I are a bit divided on this. I say general because if you're sticking with Knight, basically Knight is kind of in the same situation as some of the other worst classes, where if you're going to get out, you got to get out as soon as possible. Like if I'm trying to get Effie out of Knight, I'm putting her into Berserker, I'm putting her into Fighter, or I'm putting her into Archer as soon as is possible. Then the issue then becomes, if she's still stuck with Knight, what is she trying to do? And a lot of times she's trying to hit hard and not get hit super hard, and that means that I would like to go general. However, I've heard that Zoran seems to disagree with me on this.
Yeah, well, there's like one place in all three routes where I think general is clearly better, and that's Kitsune Lair, chapter 19 of Conquest, because you're not weak to bonus damage against beasts, and yeah. You don't really need Wary Fighter to do well in that chapter, as long as you've got the rank for the Beast Killer. In fact, I would say Wary Fighter is basically never useful, because Benny doesn't need it to do fine in Kitsune Lair, and no one else is ever going to benefit from it, really. Most people aren't so slow that they will get doubled. So the benefit of general really is you get a tiny bit more strength and HP and defense. But basically you get worse pair-up stats. I'd rather have the movement bonus. You get noticeably less movement, which is a big problem, even though like neither of these classes are very mobile between chapter 19 and 23 or so. You don't get extra weapon ranks or anything. In fact, Great Knight gets the extra weapon access and has the same A Lance rank and B Axe rank. I think Great Knight's just the better class to go to for basically anyone who cares to choose. Except if you're trying to use this person in Kitsune Lair. That's it.
That's fair. Yeah, honestly, now that I think about it, I think I see the point. I just like the fact that general is a lot less like hassle, because when you're in Great Knight, you also have to like think about like inventory management and stuff, and I just don't have to worry about that a lot of times in general. I just stick with the lances, but that's just a skill issue on my part, I think. Moving on to the Outlaw class. This class it looks like a utility class, but it's a lot more than that. Adventurer. It gives you a lot more magic and resistance. It does all the goofy stuff that Outlaw does, but even more. And Bow Knight, it gives you more movement and it gives you a better strength stat. As much as I used to be an adventurer
better defenses
fan,
too, I think was worth pointing out.
Oh yeah, better physical defenses too, and reasonable resistance still. Bow Knight has a reasonable resistance stat. I used to be a big adventurer fan, and then I took an arrow to the knee.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
And then I realized that Bow Knight is just better at everything that you want an adventurer to do. Because, look at it this way, right? Niles has okay magic, but the adventurer makes his magic look a lot better than it actually is. His strength is going to be just fine if you put him into Bow Knight. He's going to have 9 movement as well, which is really, really hard to give up. I would almost always recommend Bow Knight at this point.
I think it's a little bit closer than that, just because adventurer does have some interesting utility for Niles in particular. Like, It does give him an out in case he gets strength screwed, because he can go magic and pick up the shining bow and hit a lot of his capture kill thresholds that way. And Lucky 7 is a really nice skill for him, because he doesn't have the greatest accuracy, and having that hit or avoid bonus for 7 turns is it's really nice, just to rectify some of that. And there are things you can do with the shining bow using Nina, or if you're being really funny, Nyx. But I do think in general, Bow Knight is the better class. Like the extra 2 movement, coming from Outlaw, being a 9 movement unit who gives movement on pair up gives you a lot of utility by itself, and you've got rally skill, you've got Shuriken Breaker for late game stuff. Yeah, I think Bow Knight's better, but you can find places where Adventurer might help you out.
I do want to point out, though, a lot of these hit issues you're bringing upon yourself by using like a 75 hit or 65 hit weapon to do most of your combat in Adventurer. You're just rectifying the fact that the Shining Bow doesn't have great hit.
Well, for Niles in particular, like, he may have cases where he needs to use a steel bow or a silver bow on some dodgy enemies that you want to capture, and Lucky 7 can help you do that.
Fair enough. Okay, we go on to Mercenary. Mercenary can promote into either Bow Knight or Hero. I would say that Bow Knight is 9 times out of 10 the better option. The only time I would ever really recommend going Hero is for Silas and Sophie, basically. Well, no, Silas more specifically, because Soul is the kind of skill that some units can use to great extents. Not all units, only some units, but Silas in particular can take Soul, go into a ninja class, Master Ninja specifically, to get 1 to 2 range Soul, and he can do a pretty good job in the class. However, in every other case, that +3 speed, +3 movement, just generally decent stats all across the board is going to do you a lot of favors.
Most importantly, the bow access. Yeah, I think if you have a question about this, the answer is Bow Knight. Yeah, bows are way better than axes in this game, which is crazy to hear if you've come from certain other titles. And having the mount on top of that, fantastic. Good speed with a strong weapon type, really fantastic. Bow Knight is almost always the way to go. And yeah, and Hero suffers from being basically melee locked, not really having any good 1-2 range options. There's only one, well, I guess technically 2 cases of people who have good 2 range, 1-2 range combat in Hero, and I think we'll discuss those deeper in a second.
Literally next slide.
Yeah, but otherwise, like, Soul is a thing, but it doesn't make a decent unit great. It makes a great unit amazing. That's all. So they have to be independently like fantastic, and Hero is not what enables that.
And I think we're about to talk about that great unit that becomes amazing. And yep, here we are. Fighter is a balls to the wall offense class that can take you into either Hero or Berserker. And in this case, Fighter is really here for either going super hard, just fat offenses, or super hard, just fat pair up. And either of those situations, you're probably just way, way, way better off going Berserker. And there's, I believe, exactly one generally applicable exception to this, and that is Xander. Xander often marries Charlotte, who is a great physical pair up, probably one of the best in the game, if not the best in the game. And she gives him access to Fighter, which is great because Xander will get HP +5. And he doesn't really want to go Berserker because he loses access to his Siegfried and he gets Rally Strength, which is not really that great. On the other hand, he can go Hero and he can get access to Soul, which is going to make his great combat even better. So that's the only real situation that I've run into frequently where I would say, yeah, Hero is better than Berserker. Other than that, I would always say Berserker.
Yeah, in the specific case of Xander, he can marry Charlotte and get Fighter Hero, or he can marry Selena or become friends with Laszlo to get Mercenary Hero. So you can get HP +5 or Stronger Post, or technically both if you get the friendship with Laszlo and marry Charlotte. And then go Hero. There's really only one use case for Hero on Xander, and that's actually, besides getting those skills, and Soul can make him incredibly bulky, so that's worth noting. But the actual merit to hero as a class for him is just for Conquest Chapter 26, where it's really easy to beat the final room if you are Xander with Siegfried, but you're not weak to beast killers.
I'm gonna have to ask you to stop right there because really easy is the over exaggeration of the year. It's not really easy. It's marginally easier.
Well, I would still say really easy if you give him like proper rallies and everything. But
I guess, but I still don't think that having 2 of your units locked down every single turn and having to choke that whole way is really easy. It's maybe I've just like not played it in a while.
Hero Xander is about the most brainless way to do it, though.
Yes, definitely, for sure.
But anyway, anyone who is a fighter wants to go Berserker, because like you don't gain much from hero. Getting sword access is not that huge a benefit. But what you're giving up is your fantastic parrot bonuses, like getting like the big strength and speed bonus. Trading all that strength for skill and defense, just not a good trade. Like if you take Arthur, for example, and you promote him super early and you put him in hero, you're going to make your team worse, not better. So it's Berserker all the way. He's got better offense, better skills actually, and better parrot bonuses. The 20 crit bonus, it's not really worth caring about. You can't stack enough crit in this game to be good at getting crits. Not even Arthur. Arthur tops out at like 60-ish%, unfortunately.
Well, you have to keep in mind that there is the Great Club, but other than that, yeah, no. However, I will say it is worth keeping in mind that you might want to look out for it on enemies. Enemies have their bonuses that they get halved, so they only get 10 crit, but still it's 10 crit. So, I don't know, just keep a lookout for it.
Sure.
Alright, next up we have, this is the big guns right here. This is the class to end all classes. Wyvern Rider. You have the promotion option of going into Wyvern Lord and getting great physical bulk, a little bit more skill, because accuracy can be a little bit of an issue for an axe user sometimes, and just general combat stats on the physical side. Or you can go Malignite, get access to +6 resistance, +6 magic, slightly worse overall other stats, and the promise of eventually getting Trample, which is +5 damage. This is a one hell of a choice to make, and I really think that either of these classes, if you're in Wyvern Rider, you're doing something right, and no matter what you pick, you're gonna be fine. But for my money, I'm a Wyvern Lord, Andy. I think that I prefer using the more brainless class, and I know people are gonna say Malignite is more brainless. I don't think so, man. I think just going up and bopping an enemy on the head with an axe is much easier than, like figuring out the stuff that you need to make sure that your weapon's accurate enough to get the kills that you need it to get.
Yeah, I think like you said, if you're a Wyvern Rider, you're automatically at least pretty good. And this choice is only simple if you're a magical Wyvern Rider, which is basically Elise and like magical Corrin, and I guess maybe some kids. In which case they basically just want to go Malignite. Although even if you're doing like Wyvern Rider Felicia with an early Corrin marriage, there's actually decent reason to go Wyvern Lord first. Kind of outside the scope of this video though. But otherwise, like Wyvern Lord is fantastic for all the physical Wyvern Riders out there, which is most of them. Malignite just has really sexy skills. Savage Blow can be very, very useful, and Trample is a fantastic bonus to have. So if you are natively an axe unit, so if you're starting out in Wyvern Rider, or you're Camilla, probably Malignite's fine for a while. You could just take it to Trample. And you can do well even as a purely physical unit who doesn't really use the tome access. Wyvern Lord has... So normally you would look at a split like this and say, well, okay, Malignite has the 1-2 range weapon, so Malignite better. But there are legitimate uses for Lance access in places like Kitsune Lair. on someone like Wyvern Lord Xander, as we're seeing here. And also it has Rally Defense, which is a fantastic team support skill. Swordbreaker is not that useful in this game, except if you're trying to solo Ryoma with Corrin in Conquest Chapter 25, in which case you can make that faster. It's not really easier, I guess, but simpler to do. But yeah, both of these are really great. It's kind of hard to say, like, definitely one or the other. I think generally, if you're a purely physical unit, you're better off going Wyvern Lord and then just going to Malignite late in the game for skills if you feel like you need them. But you can make use of both sides if you're a physical unit.
Honestly, I would say play the game enough, see what you prefer, and stick to it.
Sure.
Moving on to Dark Mage. Dark Mage gets access to Nosferatu, which is pretty unique. And you can either promote into Sorcerer, which maintains Nosferatu access, or Dark Knight, which has a bit more skill and physical defense and gives movement on pair up and does not have access to Nosferatu. I think that unless you're Leo, you're going into Sorcerer. There are some other options, like early game Corrin promoting into Dark Knight can do some good stuff, but I think for all intents and purposes, you're probably just better off going Sorcerer because you have access to that +5 hit. Actually, you might look at Dark Knight and see, oh, +3 skill compared to +1 skill. Nah, that +5 hit makes up for all of that and then a little bit more, I'm pretty sure.
By 2 hit, yeah.
Yeah, and the what really all you're missing out on is the physical bulk. And admittedly, physical bulk is great on mages, but I don't think any unit has the kind of speed that can, the kind of speed and the kind of just general stats that can make it work in Dark Knight outside of Leo. And maybe Nyx if you're able to put the effort into her before she completely falls off a cliff.
Yeah, I think this choice is very polarized because if you're looking for the absolute most brainless option, which is slap Nosferatu on Odin and have him walk around and eat things, Sorcerer is the way to go for that, obviously. And on the very high end, if you're like, doing like careful setups and aligning your skill build throughout the game and timing your class changes and everything, and you're doing like Vantage, Life and Death, Sorcerer shenanigans, well, you need Sorcerer's higher magic for that, or you at least want it for that. Somewhere in the middle there, there's plenty of room for a high mobility magical unit with good stats all around who just gets the right support to be fast enough to one round things and has good HP and defense and all that. So there's a zone in the middle where Dark Knight is a really good class.
You're talking about Leo, but you're making it way more complicated than it needs to be.
Well, there's Leo and there's also Corrin, who I think probably Corrin is better off as a Dark Knight than a Sorcerer, even with Nosferatu in play. Just because you've got things like Yato, which is a nice, it's not a big deal, but it's a nice sidearm to have, and the Levin sword as well, which is the bigger selling point.
And also, there is one more situation, and that is that Nyx, despite her being just an awful combat unit, her pair-up bonuses are really good, and if you get her into Dark Knight, she's going to be +6 magic, +3 defense, +1 move. It's something like that.
+2 speed, +3 defense, +1 move.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, that's what she's going to give, and that's really good on somebody like Leo. So, yeah, I would definitely recommend going Dark Knight on Nyx.
Yeah, Dark Knight does clearly have the better pair-up bonuses. Again, unless you specifically need that plus that 2 extra magic from Sorcerer pair-up for something.
Mm-hmm. All right. Moving on to Troubadour. This is a little bit involved. I'm just going to read through this just in case you can't fully understand it. If you are a male Troubadour, you will get Gentilhomme at level 10. If you're a female Troubadour, you will get Demoiselle at level 10. And that's about it. Maid and Butler are functionally the same, except one of them looks cooler than the other. Yeah.
We're going to leave it ambiguous which one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's up to open interpretation. Leave your comments down below which one you think looks cooler. For my money, Strategist is always going to be better, especially because you've got these two guys right here that can get inspiration at about chapter 17 and help crack the game. Maid is nice if you're trying to do some funny stuff, but basically always strategist is the play, except for like early game on Jacob and Felicia, and you can get them lift serve really early because it's a nice skill to have.
Yeah. In a vacuum, you could look at this and say, well, Maiden Butler are really cool. They get daggers, they get their own 1-2 range option, they got like way better strength and defense. And that's all true. But the kinds of units who start as troubadours basically always are better off going strategist. Just because of how their stats are. And strategist just has more utility in general with the extra rally, inspiration, the mount. Like tomes versus daggers is whatever, depending on what your stats are. But like Elise always wants to go strategist because she's so much better at magic.
You mean she always wants to go Wyvern?
Well, yes, but that's a separate discussion. So yeah, Maiden Butler, there just aren't really any characters like physical characters who would want to do this and don't have a better option already. Like it is the Norian dagger class, but most people who care about that can just get ninja some way or another. Anyway.
There is the thing where, like for example, Felicia too, she's probably better off staying in Maid because she'll maintain her solid pair up, and also it's less of a hassle. Maiden Butler does have a better pair up than strategist, except for the movement. But just if you want to support a magical unit, Maiden Butler is probably better for pair up.
Yeah, the +3 speed is a big deal for certain characters like Leo. So that is worth noting.
All right. And this is the last class we're talking about. We got Wolfskin and Wolfsegner. Wolfskin and Wolfsegner are the corollaries to Fighter and Berserker when it comes to the pair-up wars of 2017. Wolfskin and Wolfsegner are just some of the best pair-up classes in the game for physical units. And but the funny thing is, the two units that get these classes also get Berserker access. So it's just a matter of preference at this point. I think that Wolfskin. This is not really an option of whether you want them to promote into one class or another because there's only one option. It's more of an option of, like, do you want them to stay in this class? And I think that the Beastbane plus just generally good combat stats, especially when you look at, like, Valoria, any Valoria is going to have good stats. I think Wolfsegner is a fine class. Even though it's melee locked and it's foot locked, I think it just has really good stats.
Yeah, I think I agree, actually. And I don't think I would have felt the same way a few months ago, but I've gotten a bit later in my Conquest LP, and I've grown to appreciate some of the subtle benefits of Wolfsegner versus, say, Berserker. Like, the difference in parrot bonus is Wolfsegner gives 4 strength, 4 speed, and Berserker is 5 strength, 3 speed. And I think that extra point of speed is actually very impactful. And, also, the stones that they have together with the innate hit bonus that Wolfsegner has, that's really nice. It makes their actual combat options a lot better than you might expect, despite being a melee only class. Still not great, but there's the nice range of applications for this.
The only issue that I have with their combat is that it's often a bit of a hassle to get them to B rank to use the Beaststone Plus, because the Beaststone Plus is really a powerful weapon, but it's really tough to get to B rank.
Yeah, most of the time they're going to be in the back doing pair-up duty, and you're probably not going to see them or put them on the front lines that often. So, that means that you'll struggle to get to that rank, but it also kind of means it doesn't matter that much. So, yeah,
generally
good class,
speaking,
actually.
Like, these units are going to be doing their job probably no matter what you do. So, just congratulations, Keaton, I guess. Yeah, and that's it. Is there any final thoughts you want to give on this topic, Zoran?
Only that there's a whole world of depth in this class changing system. We've barely touched the surface. We've just really talked about relative merits of different promotion options. There's a whole range of stuff you can do with the class system and the skill system and fates. And I'd recommend explore it. It can make your playthroughs really fun, really different from each other, and there's a lot to learn.
I'm telling you right now, if you want to find something fun to do on your next Conquest run, go into a Fire Emblem Discord, go to the 3DS or Fates channel, ask them for a goofy build, and trust me, they'll give you some goofy builds, bro. They'll be like, yeah, go for Maid Azura, and you'll have to figure out how to do it, and it'll be a fun time. You might suffer a little bit, but that, that just comes with the territory. I think going through this video has helped me appreciate how surprisingly well-balanced a lot of these options are. There are some blowouts, like with Oni Savage, or with Dark Mage a lot of the times, but there's often good reasons to go into any class. But for example, if you talked about FE8, a game with branching promotions, you would never go Great Knight over Paladin if you're a Cavalier, unless you're trying to meme. But in this game, almost every class has a really good reason, and I'm just thankful that I picked this as my game of choice. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more. As always, I'm close to getting 500 subs, and that's when I'm going to unlock community posts, so I'll be able to interact a lot more with the community. I'm going to leave a link to Zoran's channel in the description. He's got some great Fates content for any of you guys that are trying to get another fix. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
See ya.